Okay, I'll tell you how it began, how my situation began. After I'd watched my father die of a massive heart attack, I'd phoned the company where he was intending to return to work the next day, and informed them of this unfortunate disaster. Unfortunately, the executive was working in that same company, and he just took over everything, not even giving me a chance to do anything at all. He had bupa nurses arrive on a 24-hour basis in what I believed was to look after my mother only, who had severe Alzheimer's disease at the time. But I was not informed that the bupa nurses were there to look after me as well. What happened next? Well, I didn't like this, so I did whatever I could to escape. I wanted to visit someone who I thought was a friend, who I contacted through my Citizens Band radio at the time. I thought he was a friend, but turned out he wasn't. But at the time, I was innocent and pure, and I knew nothing of the real world, you could say. I knew nothing of the real world at the time. I mean, back then I didn't. Back then I didn't. Because I had had an extremely sheltered beginning. Extremely, overly so, I realize in retrospect. Overly sheltered, overly protected. Anyway, I didn't like what happened next. I didn't like this, so I did whatever I could to escape. I wanted to visit someone whom I thought was a friend, and I stupidly told the nurses about it. They told the executive, and he then tried everything he could think of to keep me in the house. But eventually he allowed me out. I was allowed to escape. And I roamed the UK with him, trying to find me all the time. What was the worst moment? Well, when I was in that Salvation Army hostel, I was starving and I had no money. No money at all. I had to beg a busker for some of his own income to allow me to eat. Another time, when I was in a hotel for the homeless, I was starving again, and again had no money to buy my own food. And I had to beg the night porter for half his packed lunch to let me have an evening meal. And fortunately for me, he thereafter saved part of his lunch for me if and when I needed it. What was the turning point? Well, I was in my lawyer's office, lawyer at the time, one day on a totally different matter, because I'd totally given up and resigned myself to living in the tower block till the end of my days. when he suddenly said to me, and I'll never forget this, "I am not supposed to tell you, but your mum did leave a will." Well, let me tell you, hope shot through me again, and that sent me faxing around trying to find it, which I eventually did, claiming my legal rights in it, and I managed to legally escape to where I am now. And as soon as the executor found out I had a fax machine, oh, let me tell you, the reaction was completely over the top, really over the score. He faxed and mailed the social work department to let them know they had a fax machine. And they didn't do anything. Nothing. Nothing about it. Nothing at all. What advice would you give to others in a similar position? Well, let me tell you. Thoroughly check out the executor, let me tell you, that you intend to put in charge of your children's affairs. Unearth anything you can about them. Go right back to his or her birth if you have to. Gut reactions or feelings about them are just not enough. Turn detective, get forms, documents, anything to confirm that they are who they say they are. Also check whether they have a criminal history. This is a very powerful position you're considering, involving considerable trust. Decide very carefully what you want the executor to be able to do. And if your children can look after themselves, allow them to do so, whatever the executor thinks about it. The executor simply cannot decide your children's future for them. Neither can he decide how much money they are to receive on a regular basis. And that is something which should be very important